Shalom Aleichem, this is Rabbi Kovacs, and the Mishnah Yomi Shir continues in chapter 2 of Shekalim, Mishnah Hey. Motar Shekalim, the leftover Shekalim, Chulin. They are Chulin. Now this is what we talked about in Mishnah Gimel. It's actually a Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel said if someone's saving up pennies to get to his shekel obligation and he has leftover pennies and more than enough, they are Chulin, so this Mishnah rules like Beis Hillel. Now we go on to what happens if you're saving up for something else and you have leftover money. Motar asirit ha'efa, leftovers from the 1/10 of an ephah. Now that's the chatat of someone who's very poor, can't afford an animal. In some circumstances, he can bring a mincha instead. Or motar kinei zavim, the leftover for the bird pairs of a zav or zava, kinei zavot, kinei yoldot, and bird pairs for a woman who gave birth. They all bring two birds, and one's an ola, one's a chatas, v'chatat v'shamot, or a leftover money, above and beyond money from a sin offering or a guilt offering, motarehen nedava. All of these leftovers go to the nedava fund. So we said yesterday when the mizbeach was quiet, there was nothing going on, they'd go ahead and bring a nedava, so the mizbeach isn't sitting around doing nothing. The Mishnah adds, Zeh haklal, this is the general rule, kol shu ba l'shem chatas l'shem ashama, anything that came for something, there's some sort of guilt involved, some sort of mistake involved, or trying to rectify, motaran nedava. Leftover money from that goes to the nedava, the gift fund. As an aside, if someone's feeling guilty, they think maybe they've made a mistake, they can't put their finger on it, always good to give tzedakah, always helps. The Mishnah continues, motar ola la-ola, leftover ola money, bring another ola. You can bring as many ola as you want. Motar mincha la-mincha, leftover mincha money, go ahead and bring another meal offering. Motar shlamim, leftover peace offering money to a peace offering. Motar Pesach l'shlamim. Leftover Pesach funds go to a shlamim, as we explained in the last Masechta in Pesachim. Sometimes a leftover Pesach animal itself, an extra Pesach, could become a shlamim. Sometimes could be recycled as a shlamim. So too the money for Pesach. Motar Nazirim l'Nazirim. Leftover money for Nazirs goes to Nazirs. So what's going on here is apparently there was a tzedakah fund for people who didn't have a lot of money to bring their concluding karbanos, their concluding offerings after they were done with their nazirut. And there are 3 offerings for a nazir when he does his concluding sacrifices. So it's a bit of an expense. So they set up a collection. And if there were leftovers for that collection, they would go to other poor nazirim who needed to bring their karbanos. Motar nazir, the Mishnah says, the leftovers from a single nazir, l'nedava. So it was one man saving up money for his own personal karbanos. Those extras go to the gift fund. Mishnah continues, motar aniyim la'aniyim. Tzedakah collected for poor people to feed them, the soup kitchen, the tamchui, that goes to other poor people. Motar ani, if they collected for the specific poor person, la'oto ani, it goes to him. Now, this is even in a case where, if a person had 199 zuz, he's still an ani, but once he gets to 200 zuz, he's not an ani. So it seems like even if they collected for this man more than 200 zuz, so he's technically out of the category, they can still give him all of that money because it was collected specifically for him. Motar shavuyim l'shvuyim. The leftovers from money that was collected to redeem captives goes to redeem other captives. Motar shavui, the leftovers from a specific captive, la'oto shavi, goes to that captive. This is even if they collected more than they needed to redeem this specific person, they had leftovers, they could give him or her the leftover money. Motar meitim, leftovers for the dead. This means for burial and the like. Lemeitim, it goes to bury other dead and give a proper burial. The Gemara is mentioned in a few places that burial in a respectful way in the cemetery was really a Jewish innovation, that back then among idolaters, only the rich and famous, like Paro and the nobles, they got a nice burial, and other people just got thrown on the side of the road or in someone's backyard, which is why there's tuma, there's ritual impurity outside of Eretz Yisrael, because they would bury people anywhere they want or just leave them to rot, nebuch. So we see it was really a Jewish innovation, and this is part of it, that they would really raise funds for the cemetery, for the graves, to pay the grave diggers and to give people, even if they had no family members, to give them a respectful burial and last rites. Finally, the Mishnah adds motar hamet, leftovers for a specific deceased. If they're raising money to bury a specific person, leyorshav, it should go to his inheritors, his family. If they raised more than enough money to bury him, it'll go to the family. Rabbi Meir Omer, but Rabbi Meir says motar hamet yehei munach ad sheyavu Eliyahu. It shouldn't go to the family. It should sit until Eliyahu comes and decides what to do, because he says it's a suffix. Because what's happening is if you have to go around raising money to bury someone, it's a bit of a disgrace. It's a genai. It doesn't feel good for that person and for his family. So there's a tzad to say it should go to his inheritors, to his children, because that's some sort of consolation for the disgrace of having to raise money to bury him. Or maybe not. Maybe it should go to public needs, or maybe it should go to his own tombstone, as we're going to see. Rabbi Natan Omer, Motor Met, Rabbi Natan says, what do you do with the leftover money? Bonin lo nefesh al kivro. You build a nefesh on his kever. You build a tombstone or a gravestone for him, like a monument so people remember him. Like, it's a very personal thing to raise money for this person, so he should, in a sense, enjoy the money somehow. On to chapter Gimel, chapter 3, Mishnah Aleph. B'shlosha prokim b'shana, 3 times a year. We've alluded to this Mishnah before. Termin et lishka. They would raise money out of the office, meaning they would scoop money, we're going to see, scoop shekels out of that room to use for temple needs. When was this? Befrosa Pesach, half of Pesach, meaning 15 days before Pesach. Fros Atzeres, 15 days before Shavuos. Fros Chag, and 15 days before Sukkot. Behen granot lemaiser behema. These times are also the goren for the animal tithe. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. This is all according to Rabbi Akiva. Now, what's going on with this maiser behema is that technically animals born that year must be tithed that year, but we don't want people kind of leaving their animals untithed for the entire year. We really want animals to be tithed and available, specifically and especially times people are ole regel and need to bring karbanos. So we'd have people, encourage people to tithe their animals 15 days before all of these holidays. So there are plenty of animals ready and available for the festivals. Ben Azai Omer. Now Ben Azai disagrees with the dates a little bit. He says Be'ezrim v'tisha ba'adar. He says it would be the last day of Adar, which again is about 2 weeks before Pesach. Be'echad b'sivan. Echad b'sivan is only 6 days before Shavuos, not 2 weeks. Be'ezrim v'tisha ba'av, and the 29th day of Av, the last day of Av. Now this last one is because Ben Azai actually has a suffix if the Rosh Hashanah for Meiser Behema starts on Elul or the 1st of Tishrei. So he doesn't want animals born in Elul tithed together with ones born before Elul because of the suffix. We'll get into that in Rosh Hashanah when we talk about the Rosh Hashanah for Meiser Behema. Now the Mishnah brings a third opinion. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Omrim, they say Be'echad ben Nisan. We have it 14 days before Pesach, the 1st of Nisan, Be'echad b'Sivan, as Ben Azai said, shortly before Shavuos, Be'esrim b'Tisha be'Elul, and the last day of Elul, 15 days before Sukkot. Why did they say this last date? Why didn't they just say the 1st of Tishrei? Why did they say the last day of Elul? Mipnei shu Yom Tov, the 1st of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah. Ef shar la'aser b'Yom Tov. You can't take Meiser Behema on a Yom Tov, on a festival. Lefichach hikdimuhu le'esrim b'Tisha be'Elul. Therefore, they advance it 1 day to the last day of Elul, right before Rosh Hashanah. So you thought your Rosh Hashanah was busy. They were also tithing animals. And you can't tithe them on Yom Tov because we would mark every 10th animal with a dot, with like red paint, we're going to see, as we learned in Meisers. We're talking about Meiser Behema. So you could not do that on Yom Tov. Yasher kochachem and zay gesund.